Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Work Mindful podcast. My name is Pandit, and I run an organization called Work Mindful Corporation, which is centered around bringing mindful leadership and mindfulness to companies and organizations around the country. And before this, I spent 15 years living as a monk. And for the longest time, people have been telling me I should start my own podcast. So here it is. And so this podcast is centered around interviewing individuals who have tried to implement mindfulness into their own organization in some capacity or another. So I'm very happy and excited to have my very first guest on my very first podcast, Roger Jans. Roger, welcome to the Work Mindful podcast.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and so Roger is a manager of learning, development, and performance at Ramapo College of New Jersey, where he's responsible for devising and implementing Ramapo College's employee learning and development strategy and delivering learning programs. And Roger also has 25 years of experience in the field of human resources management and has been working at Ramapo since 1994. And some of his work experiences in human resources have been quoted in the book Fundamentals of Human Resources Management, the 11th edition. So Roger, once again, thank you very much for taking the time to be part of this podcast. I'm really happy that we're having this conversation. We've had so many conversations in the past before. Can you maybe, do you remember where we first ran into each other and when that was?
I do actually. We were in San Diego and I think it was 2017, and it was the Association for Talent and Development, their big event. And I saw mindful leadership, and I'm like, hey, I just read about that, and I've been asked to create a leadership program. Let me go see what this guy has to say. And lo and behold, it was you.
So you were in the audience when I was doing that talk.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And so as a human resources professional, what are some of your responsibilities at Ramapo College or in general? What are some of the things that you do? If you could describe that for us a little bit, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, sure. Not only am I responsible for workforce planning and retention at Ramapo, my responsibilities lead a little bit into classification compensation as well. The heart of what I do, though, is I have to lead Ramapo College, their learning and development program for employees. So I stepped into a unique challenge where I was asked to step into this role, build a brand new learning program and a brand new leadership program. That's where I've been for the past 3 years of my human resources career, is actually building these programs for our employees.
And so as you build these programs, what do you hope that the employees will gain from these programs? What do you hope they'll walk away with through these programs?
Sure. Man, that's a good question. The core aspect of the whole program is just to give employees an opportunity to learn about themselves first, right? And then once they learn about themselves, then learn about techniques that they can apply in the workforce, right? We want to create an environment for our employees of engagement. And that's what I really want them to take away. A lot of our sessions are built for 1 hour. And in that 1 hour, we give 3 to 6 important topics that they need to take back with them, right? And that they can apply immediately. With that concept, it's more of in lines of micro learning, break it down bits of information so people can use it meaningfully.
Okay. And I noticed you said that learning about themselves, so developing self-awareness, that sounds a little bit like mindfulness to me, because that's a lot of what I talk about, is because I feel like once you can learn about yourself, you can also understand others better, because you're taking the time out to learn about yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So is that sort of the idea behind what you're developing for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what you're saying is exactly what we're doing. So we have the learning program, and then we have our leadership program. And our leadership program is we learn to lead ourselves first, so we can better lead others.
Yeah.
And together we lead the process. That is Ramapo College's leadership philosophy, and it's right in line with what you were just saying.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that sounds really great. And I mean, I can just see how important it is to have a program like that, because imagine a bunch of people who aren't self-aware, haven't done anything, trying to put them together and have them try to work together and cooperate and collaborate. It's just not going to happen. No one's going to be able to see another person's perspective, right? Yeah.
Yeah. When we launched the program, we started off with learning ourselves, right? So we were giving people, telling them to look at their personality. What is their communication style? What is their leadership style? What do they know? And the interesting fact about that is people really, they didn't know that about themselves. And when we started exploring that and making ourselves aware of that, the energy that we're bringing, right? It
Yeah.
really opened a lot of doors to a lot of things I didn't expect. And I don't think the employees, the learners, expected as well. Some of my learners are 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and they're
Wow.
learning something new about themselves by this concept, which is mind blowing to me.
And I can only imagine that when they learn these things about themselves and how to implement it into the workplace, that it's got to spill over into their personal life as well. Like that new improved self now is walking, is driving home, and that's got to have a positive impact on their interactions with their family members, right? Have you seen that kind of feedback from them? Have they talked about that?
Yeah, definitely. Some people come back after the sessions and they think, why am I so emotionally drained right now? I'm like, well, because you're turning to your inside, right? You're turning to your emotions, your brain, your soul, your person,
Yeah.
and you're studying that, and that sometimes is just a concept that takes a lot of energy from people because it's exciting, it's scary,
Yeah.
it's a little uncomfortable sometimes,
Yeah.
um, but most of them walk away feeling a relief, um, a release even of just positive energy, saying, "Wow, I never learned that about myself, but I'm seeing life through a whole nother view and through another lens." That to me is all I need to hear, right? I get so excited when they share that with me.
Yeah, and I can see the excitement in your face. And I think we share a similar excitement because I kind of experience that too in my work when I see a transformation taking place. Like a lot of times after a talk, I'll do a mindfulness workshop and session where people will actually have them close their eyes and do some meditation. And people get emotional. And some people will come up to me and say, like, oh my God, I cried. And so, yeah, I guess going inward is a journey that we don't realize that it's a journey. We always think of a journey as occupational. I need to get to this level, and so this designation. I need to be promoted to this level, or journeys like I went from this much money to this much money to this much money to this much money. Went from an apartment to a one house to like a 3-bedroom house to like a whatever. Like we see that as a journey outward, but the journey inward does a lot of different things that we can't imagine. And it's so great. It's so great that you're opening this door to this other kind of journey, which will help them professionally, but also help them on an individual level. So I can
Yeah,
see how that's so satisfying because I get the same satisfaction from the work that I do.
yeah,
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
yeah, and so thank you for sharing that. And so I'm just wondering now in terms of, so I think it was like a couple years ago that you invited me to speak at Ramapo, right?
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, even before that, did you have some introduction to mindfulness from your past? Was there something that happened that made you want to explore mindfulness or meditation? Were there certain concepts that you were introduced to? Like, how did it start for you, that journey, that made you ultimately say, I want to invite this former monk to Ramapo to speak to our staff? So yeah, I would love to just hear about your journey and how that developed.
Sure. I mean, I consciously, I don't know the exact moment in time, right? That
Yeah.
these are some things about, pay attention to others or being present in a conversation or just active listening, deep listening to someone and not responding, just listening to them and asking them, engaging them in questions to learn more. Um, is something that I've been doing, I guess, for a long time, but I didn't realize I was doing it. I didn't know that was mindfulness. It was just something as a person I did. Um, but I got to say is my eyes started opening up a little bit to mindfulness um, in two avenues. One was my martial arts journey, and I've been on that journey for a while. And especially in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been practicing that now for 13, going on 14 years. Um, and it just, the concept of being in that moment, right? When situations are happening to you, right? You got to breathe, you got to think, you got to put sequential steps. You know, how am I going to move forward here and collect your thoughts and be at mind? You know, and then being at Ramapo College and reading and doing research, building the learning and leadership program, and hearing you speak in San Diego, you know, it opened the door to our relationship. And when I called you to say, hey, you know, I really love what I heard, it made all the sense in the world to me. This is exactly what we're doing at Ramapo, but I just didn't know we were doing this. You know, can you come and speak on, I think the first time you came was you did mindful communication. And then we did mindful leadership or leadership and then communication. Yeah. I think it was leadership and then communication. And at the same time, Ramapo College received a grant for the Crane Center, you know, for mindful learning. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is all like coming together, even though it's separate program than mine. You know, it was just something that reinforced I was on the right path. This is what we're supposed to be doing. So I guess between, you know, my journey started before I even knew the journey started, but really professionally, work-wise, probably from 2015 till now.
Okay, and so it was the jujitsu that kind of got you into the breathing exercises and to becoming aware of your thoughts and emotions and things like that, huh?
And learning how to control it, you know, and not let it run away, right?
Okay.
Because in martial arts, if you let it run away, you're already defeated. You can't put something together that's going to be, you know, for jujitsu, you can't, you know, block an attack in a meaningful way that's going to make you victorious, right? You know, and a lot of sometimes it's just it's like a dance. You're putting that dance together. It's an ebb and flow of moves, and you're waiting for the right opportunity, you know, to be in your moment, so you become victorious.
Looks like you're in a small space, but I think if you had a bigger space, I'd probably have asked you to do a little demo of some of your moves. You know, let's see what you got. I think that would bring a whole new level of action and excitement to my podcast. If you could like do a couple backflips or spin kicks or something like that, you know, the mindful spin kick.
There you go. Well, maybe in a future podcast we can go to my dojo and, you know, we can do a whole.
That would be really cool, actually. You know, I think that would be really cool. So now was there anything specific that, when you decided to, in your mind said, you know what, it would be nice to introduce this to the campus. And when you introduced it to some of the other individuals, because I'm assuming there was some kind of a committee involved, was there any concern that any of them raised, just like, hey, I don't know, is this a spiritual thing? Is it appropriate? Like, what are we really going to learn from it? I'm just wondering if you encountered any roadblocks, hurdles, speed bumps, that kind of thing, you know, before you were able to bring it in.
Yeah, being in higher ed, I was at an advantage because higher ed is all about experiential learning, right?
Okay.
Creating learning opportunities for individuals. With that open-mindedness, when I approached them, them being the senior staff that had approved the learning program and leadership program, I really didn't bump into too many walls there. You know, they were open to it. Keep in mind, we already had the Mindfulness Spiritual Center. The only concern, maybe the roadblock there is competing programs, right? They were concerned that we don't want two programs at the college that might conflict with each other. in which didn't, because the mindful for student learning was more 8 week, 6 week programs, to become certified and go out and extend the programs and learn the programs, or to be incorporated in a college course, right? My program was built for micro learning, giving employees tools they can use every day to get them through various situations. So once I cleared that hurdle and they understood that the programs would be, not a hindrance to each other, and collaboration between the two groups might even support and grow both programs.
Okay, so that's kind of pretty fortunate that you didn't have any hurdles. And would you say that it's just becoming a little bit more acceptable for companies and organizations in general, just the whole concept of mindfulness? Is that sort of your experience, that they think that might have had a role or factor to play in there not being so many obstacles for you?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because the senior staff wasn't obstacles, but what the obstacle I did start to receive, and I think it's starting to wane a little bit, is people were viewing it as a weakness. If I opened up, if I shared, if I became vulnerable, right?
Hmm.
That would expose me as a leader. That would expose me as a person, right? Because as human beings, sometimes we like to build up these walls and
Yeah.
protect ourselves, right? Um, and and I still get this someday when I'm teaching or leading a workshop on, say, mindful communication or mindful leadership or collaborative leadership, right? Where you would see you're seeking the horizontal relationships rather than the traditional vertical relationship, with the power coming down and not coming back up, and information flow. That's where I still get some of the feedback, some of the resistance, and people are a little, not skeptical, but they're afraid that if they opened up or if they showed their true person, right, they might not be seen the same. So that's an obstacle. It's still a challenge.
That people really don't want to be all too vulnerable in front of their colleagues, because we kind of like to put up our best and toughest and most qualified self to be able to maintain our sort of like self-respect and the respect of others. And I guess the idea is that if I drop some of that, then people won't respect me as much, and maybe I won't be able to get as much done, or whatever it may be, right? Some ideas that we all have.
Or I'm not they won't, I'm not a strong leader. I'm not viewed as a strong leader because I'm showing I could be emotional, or I show concern, or I show vulnerability through a conversation. It's that 1930s to 1950 leadership style where it's, don't do as I say, do as I do, or don't do as I do as I say. That's.
So then, since you know that that's the concern, and some people have gone through it, have you heard any or received any feedback from individuals who are doing it and have become a little more vulnerable in the right way? And what are they saying? I mean, has it been good for them to become more vulnerable? And how are they balancing that vulnerability with more just their leadership? And how is it coming together? What are you hearing?
Yeah, it's hard, but when I engage in a conversation, I say, what tool do you use the most, and that you value is the most beneficial to you, right? And the first thing they'll say is communication,
Mm.
and then I'll respond, well, being mindful, is having respect and being in the moment with that person, and focusing all your energy on basically having the best conversation you could have, so you're learning the most about how the company can move forward, how the department can move forward, how your team can move forward. Do you value that? And once they see that value, they make that connection, they're a little bit more apt to drop that shield and become a little bit more vulnerable. But it's got to be bite sizes, it's got to be steps.
Sure.
And once they find out that it's not all, kumbaya, for lack of a
Yeah,
better word, right?
yeah.
Peace, love, happiness, kumbaya. Yes, that's part of it, but it's not all of it, right? And it's not all touchy feely. It could be professional. It's meaningful and respectful dialogue, right? Being a leader, you're valuing that person and that relationship. And as soon as they get that concept, it's a better buy-in.
Mm. And so, in terms of this communication, what specifically are you noticing is the change in the style of communication that's taking place as they're going through these programs? I'm just curious, like, what have you noticed, or what have they said, or what have you just kind of, what, what's the difference that's being noticed as they're going through this?
Yeah, tone. I see a lot of neutral tones, welcoming tones, um, happiness. Like they're happy to engage in a conversation with somebody they're having a relationship with or building a relationship with. Um, and when there's disagreements, I've noticed too, the disagreements aren't, being in HR, right? We're always responding to put out fires. It always seems like, well, he said, and she said, and she said, and he said. Now we're saying, it's more of a, what did you mean by that? Can you explain more to me about that you're feeling, right? Um,
That's
or
amazing.
I see people saying, instead of you did that, I feel, I'm starting to, so they're starting to be accountable for their energy and their emotions, and they're redirecting it. So instead of saying, what went wrong, how can we improve so this doesn't happen together? What can we do to build a better relationship? So it's not perfect, and there is some slides that go back and forth, but those kind of conversations I'm noticing more and more.
Wow. Okay. After this, you might just get a bunch of requests on LinkedIn. It seems like you're doing a great job there. So hopefully no one can look away from this,
Well, we got our ups and downs, but it's we're better equipped to handle it. So like I said, if we have to fail, we're failing forward, right? We're not letting it devastate us.
It sounds like you're doing an incredible job. Just the fact that
Thank you.
people are being more receptive to each other, their tone is changing. Like some of the things that I talk about when I'm talking about mindful communications, think about what you're saying, how you're saying it, the impact it's going to have on the person receiving your communication, and ultimately think about how it's going to affect your relationship with that person. How the impact it's going to have and your relationship. Like that needs to be considered before you press send or before you call someone in to have a meeting with them. Like if we just take even 5 minutes to think that through, like what is this going to, like after this, are we not going to be able to look at each other when we pass each other in the hallway? Is that what this conversation is going to lead to? Is that going to be the end result of this? Then maybe I don't need to have this conversation, because that's going to create a weird, tense environment for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm wondering, have you also noticed any of your staff, or have you talked about it since I've been there a couple times? Are there folks, is there some kind of a mindfulness meditation thing happening once in a while, monthly, weekly, annually, something? I don't know. Are there groups forming, or I'm just wondering, has there been some kind of something happening because of that?
Yeah, I mean, through our mindfulness center, we at the college, they teach yoga, to college classes, right? They teach yoga to the public if you sign up for the courses. But what I'm noticing too is, that's on the academic side, but on the employee side, I'm noticing, instead of group lunch, they meet, they have lunch, they either go for a mindful walk,
Okay.
or they'll sit. We have a spiritual center. And there's a beautiful garden. They'll sit there and just just sit in peace with each other, right? Taking that time. So when I say it's full meditation or full yoga or no, it's just people getting together, being, just taking 30, 60, 90 seconds, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, just to be at peace, just to calm themselves, refocus, re-energize before they go back to work. I've seen the groups start from like 2 to 4. It's probably averaging 5 or 6 now,
Mm.
and separate groups. but it's slowly getting out there.
Wow. So at least that culture, people are becoming aware of that culture, that it is important to decompress between things, that after lunch, we don't have to eat lunch at our desk, like always just like constantly working. Like it is important to decompress, to declutter our mind, to, as my favorite example is to close out the apps that we have open up, bring our mind to a more calm space. So that culture seems like people are picking up on it. And it's not strange to seeing a few people sitting on the lawn and doing some meditation. It's no longer strange to see that. That's pretty soon you'll probably be one of those people sitting with everyone doing that.
Indeed. I haven't seen it yet, but I hope it's coming, like before and after meetings. you know, especially what's going on today. It's
Sure.
good just to open up and be grateful for, have a positive thought, because if you're like me, and I'm a positive person, but a lot of negative thoughts are coming in right now. You turn on the news, you just look at what's happening. It's hard. Our mind loves to steal that and run away with it. We got to pull it back and refocus.
And once you get the news in your head, it's hard to get that out, and
Totally.
some of us start our morning meditation by watching the news, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I try not to, I try to make sure that happens after my meditation, after my breakfast. Like that's when I want anything else going in there,
Yeah.
But are there any other things that you're hoping for, or any plans that you want to introduce into the campus and to your work that you're doing there at Ramapo to further the idea of mindfulness into the organization and maybe into the student life as well? Are there any thoughts or plans or ideas that you have to introduce some new programming or just something new to kind of keep it going forward?
Yeah. I think with leadership, I'm really engaged with, I'm really focused on collaborative leadership. And that's a hard concept for a lot of individuals, especially in higher ed, to embrace. And the reason is being in higher ed, we have these silos, right? So we have, for instance, student affairs, and you have academic affairs. You have administration and finance, right? And all these leaders are coming together at a high level, and they're planning for their units and how we're going to adapt to the change in higher ed, right? And a perfect example, COVID-19, how are we going to deliver, courses to our students, right? Because right now everything's shut down.
Yeah.
Working together, coming together, interdiscipline, and discussing issues together as interdisciplinarians, sharing our experiences instead of working out those problems in single silos and then coming together. I think today I would love to see, because I just don't think a leader can have all the answers right now. Not one person could solve the problems. It's got to be collaborative, but that takes work. That takes patience, understanding yourself, understanding others, together leading that process, like our leadership program. We're not there yet, and it's going to take some. We're close. It's not for lack of effort. It's just it's hard work. And to get it so it, the cooperation, the collaboration, to get it to move as one towards the mission is sometimes challenging because of all the other variables coming in.
Yeah.
So if I had to choose one, I would say, collaborative leadership, meaningful collaborative leadership is the one area I'd like to move forward.
And I know like starting something can be difficult, but even more difficult is it's like maintaining it. Right? It's like you get something started. Okay, that was, you have to jump through hoops and get all kinds of approvals and budget approvals and every departmental approvals. Okay, it started, but now to keep it going year after year after year, that is the challenge. And I guess that's the challenge you're sort of just embracing, and you're enjoying that challenge, it seems like,
Yeah. And also, like you said, you're maintaining it, right? Especially as human beings, it's okay, that's the flavor of the month.
Yeah.
That'll change, right? What else is coming up? We're so used to it. But no, it's not only a business philosophy, it's a life philosophy for human beings, right? Being in that mindfulness, theology, just that moment, it's a life journey. It's not just a business short time flavor of the month journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It is a lifelong journey. It is a lifelong journey. It's not something you start now and then end and then that's it, because then the journey we didn't make the most of it then.
Right, right.
You know, and in order to make the most of it, it sort of needs to be consistent, just like with anything. Just like even your jujitsu practice, if you just did it once in a while, you'd forget it all. It wouldn't do all that much, right? So just like anything, it is. If there's no consistency, the amount that we can gain, the depth we could gain from that, it just won't be achieved.
Right, right. There's
Wow.
always a learning opportunity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I'm just wondering if there's any, concluding thoughts that you'd like to share with other organizations, people who'll be hearing this, who may be curious about an introduction of mindfulness into their workplace. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share, what steps they could take, what would be the right way to do it? I don't know if there is any concluding thoughts you'd like to share.
Wow.
Big question.
That's a really thoughtful question. Oh, wow. As you take this first step, right? We also got to be open, right? We have to be gentle with ourselves too, because you know what? Life's not perfect. We're not perfect. This journey won't be perfect, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be. There is no right way to do it. You just got to go there and have those conversations, those meaningful, valuable conversations with individuals that are engaging, welcoming, respectful, so you can continue to grow. That's just it. And like, there'll be certain times things will work better than other times, but the important things is there's a lot of different things you can do, right? Because there's no right way to do it, that you'll find that fit for that time to get you to that next step. And then it might change, but that's okay. We're humans, we're changeable, we're adaptable, we're pliable. I guess if I had any words of wisdom, it's just be open, and breathe.
Yeah.
Breathe and hold your breath because it's not working.
Be flexible and be patient, right?
Right.
It'll happen how and when it's meant to. All we can do is really try our best and do everything we can. And coming from a right space inside, like wanting to help our leaders, help the organization, come from that space, and it'll happen when it does.
Yeah, right.
So even though you said it's not perfect, but I think that was the perfect answer, Roger. So that was great.
That was a tough one. You made me think on that one.
Well, I get that one thrown at me sometimes, and I'm just like, oh my God, that's such a big one. Like, where do I go with that one? I know it is, but it's like, but I think you gave a really good answer to that. So I really appreciate it. And so the final thing I just want to ask is, like, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, and just, I don't know, if they're thinking about something in their organization, they want to have a conversation with a peer, or just want to pick your brain or just have a conversation, what would you say is the easiest way for them to get in touch with you? Is there, social media they can connect with you, or how would you say?
Thank you for that. I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And my email, rjans@ramapo.edu.
Okay.
And on LinkedIn,
I'll put that in the description also, so that they can find your LinkedIn profile, and then they can email you if they want to get in touch with you.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Roger, this has been such a great conversation. It's just so good to see you again.
Likewise.
I'm just happy to feel like I'm seeing an old friend. It's been a while since, I was there last year, right?
Last year, yeah.
October or something?
Yeah. Actually, it was January.
January this year?
Yes.
2020?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it wasn't that long ago then.
Oh, it just seems like
Yeah, it was really, really not too long ago. But no, thank you again for taking the time and for being my first guest on the podcast. And part 2 is going to be you at your dojo doing some spin kicks for us before we get to the HR and mindfulness space. So, well, Roger, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this wonderful conversation with Roger Jans of Ramapo College. Thank you.